Greetings and welcome to another edition of Montpelier Connection. I'm State Representative Mike Mrowicki, and I represent the Windham 4 District of Putney, Dummerston, and Westminster. We're in our pre-session preparatory time and getting ready for the 2016 legislative session. It's coming up fast, and today's guest is Representative Val Stuart in Brattleboro. Welcome, Val.
Thank you very much, Mike. Thanks for having me.
Now, Brattleboro has 3 districts.
Sure.
Which is yours?
District 2 is mine. It runs roughly from the highway, exit 2, to Marlboro. It's essentially West Brattleboro.
Yeah.
And then Upper Dummerston to, from Upper Dummerston, the whole West Brattleboro area.
I forget sometimes. We have three districts there. I forget where they are, and sometimes people forget where they are too.
Right.
So good way for people to know who to get in touch with. And
Absolutely.
if people want to get in touch with you, what's the best way?
The best way for them to contact me, Mike, would either be by calling my cell phone, which is 802-338-6578, or to contact me at my legislative email, which is vstuart, S-T-U-A-R-T, at leg.state.vt.us. It's the same for all of us legislators, as you know.
Yep, and that information is on the legislative website if people want to
You got it, absolutely.
know how to get in touch with us. So we had a productive session,
Absolutely.
2015.
Absolutely.
Contrary to the gloom and doomers, I say, the Vermont economy is actually moving ahead.
Absolutely.
Our unemployment's still low. The problem for some employers is actually finding
this is true.
workers. You work on the Commerce Committee. You did a lot of good work last year. You want to share a few of the highlights from last year?
Sure. Well, we tweaked the VEGI, the Vermont Growth Incentive Program, and that's a really important program in terms of giving tax incentives for businesses to stay here in Vermont.
And is that part of what GS Precision was?
Exactly.
Yeah.
We're very pleased. That was so important to, all of us here in Windham County, and certainly as a member of the Commerce Committee, I was really happy that VEGI came into play and helped keep GS Precision here. They're an incredibly valuable employer. They pay good wages for their jobs, and they also offer job training, which is just wonderful.
One of the things I've been reading about nationwide are these public-private partnerships where when some businesses are wanting for the kind of training in their workers, they're taking it on themselves, and this is an example, isn't it?
They're an excellent example, and they've done a great job, and we really appreciate their deciding to stay here in Brattleboro, and we're so glad that the VEGI incentives played a part.
Yeah, it's another way that we're working to try and keep the economy moving forward. And
Exactly. And another way we tweaked VEGI actually was VEGI basically rewards only companies that will create a certain number of good paying jobs, but we also slightly lowered the dollar amount that wage needs to be, because here in Windham County the wages are a little bit lower, and so we wanted to make sure that the VEGI incentive was really well suited to grow our area, because our area needs to grow far more than what Chittenden does, for instance. So that was another tweak that we made, but we tweaked it a bit. We'll look at it again. We look at it every year to make sure it's exactly where it should be in terms of taking taxpayers' valuable money and putting it to best use.
yeah, and it's another way we invest in Vermont.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah. What are some of the other things the Commerce Committee worked on last year?
So another thing the Commerce Committee worked on, which I think it was really wonderful in a tight fiscal year that actually went through, was marketing money for the state of Vermont. And we actually got $300,000 designated toward marketing Vermont, and that's really important, Mike, because as you well know, we not only need to create jobs here in Vermont, but we need to attract people to do those jobs. We also need to attract companies and entrepreneurs, and a lot of people don't know that there are jobs right here in Vermont already that need to be filled. And secondly, we want to welcome people to come and move here. Because of the graying of our population, we really need young people to move move here. So marketing campaign will be externally oriented, and it will help bring in people from outside the state to fill the jobs and create the jobs that we need to have a strong future.
Glad to hear that. One of the things that some research has turned up, the administration had a poll of college students. And,
Oh, yes.
And one of the unfortunate things that they picked up on was that for years there'd been this narrative going that Vermont is bad for business. There's no jobs here.
Exactly.
And, you know, not true.
Exactly.
Our businesses are doing well. There's, as we said, there's good jobs to be had here. And how that is affecting some of our students is some of them are saying they did not even bother to look in Vermont as an option for where to look for work because of what they keep hearing. And that's what I mentioned, the gloom and doomers. There are aspects of the business community which paint Vermont as a bleak place, and
Right.
it's not. There's a lot of good things happening here in Vermont. And
it's really true.
And there's really a bright future for kids, young people who want to stay here, who want to come here.
Absolutely. And a lot of, I think, our future challenge will be connecting those kids with those jobs. So we need to work further on really figuring out a good way to communicate with young people. And basically, maybe we can cut that for a minute.
Sure, start it up again.
Yeah, sure, sorry. Just 1 minute. I'm trying to gather what I was saying. To communicate with young people at the college level that there are jobs here and be specific about it and train them for jobs that actually exist and employers are seek to fill. So yeah, and just speaking of workforce development, one of the things that we did, which I basically was the author of a piece of a bill that basically talked about how technical centers, we would like the Agency of Education, the Agency of Commerce and Community Development, and the Department of Labor to come back to us with recommendations on how our career centers can be more effectively used to train young people we have here right now for the jobs we need, you know, that are open in the future. So that's something I'm looking forward to seeing what those three agencies came up with and working with them to make sure that we have a plan to use our career centers, which are such a wonderful asset and vary greatly in terms of what they offer and the quality of what they offer. So to make sure that they're really running at in top form to help our young people.
Well, we've certainly got a wonderful career center right here in Brattleboro.
Yes, our career center here is absolutely wonderful. And another thing, this session, something I'm going to do and work with Frank Rucker, who's the, I think his exact title is CFO over at Windham Southeast Supervisory Union and the high school, is figure out a way to make sure that the way technical centers are funded is Frank and I have talked about tweaking it so that the sending school doesn't feel like such a drain on their coffer in terms of the tuition leaving and following the student and then leaving a hole in their enrollment. So we're going to try to figure out a statewide way to ameliorate that problem. And I'm looking forward to seeing if we can do that.
And it is something we've heard locally and across the state that with declining student enrollments, it's hard for a school to give up a student from their district to let them go to another district, even though they have better opportunities here.
No question.
Yeah, and I think what we're trying to do, I know in social services, we're trying to develop program services where the money follows the kid. It's not, there's not a fight over a budget to see where the kid's going to go. And similarly, I think if we put the kid in the center of the picture, then the money should just follow him or her and make sure they have the best benefit available to them.
Absolutely. So so that's something else I'm really looking forward to seeing the results of. What hopefully we can get something off the ground that'll really work well. We're going to work carefully with the Agency of Education so that the funding piece really makes sense from a state point of view.
That sounds like a real good idea.
Yeah. So I'm looking forward to that. And
Now, a number of other things came across our desks in the last session, and a couple of things that Representative Tolino was here.
Yes.
talking about the earned sick leave.
Yes, I think that's a
benefit
great thing.
that we passed in the House, and we're trying to move over to the Senate.
Absolutely.
Is that something that your committee worked on as well?
We really didn't work on that. I'm totally in favor of it. Sounds like the Senate is likely to approve it. I'm thrilled about that. And but we weren't really involved as the Commerce Committee on that. But I'm very much in favor of it, and I certainly do hope it comes out of the Senate with a upvote, and we move that forward. People deserve to be able to take care of a sick child, a sick relative, or attend to their needs. So I think that's important.
You mentioned before, last year was a tight budget year.
Yes.
This year is going to be a tight budget year in its own way, too. The good economic news that we heard several weeks ago was that Vermont got its bond ratings. And once again, we have the best bond rating in New England.
Right.
And the rationale of, I think it's Standard & Poor's, Fitch's, and Moody's was that Vermont handles its finances well.
No question.
And that's why they have confidence in us. We have a prospective budget gap, but as the narrative comes out of there, they appreciate that we deal with these things right away. This is going to be a challenge for us too, but one of the things that we found out was we have a prospective budget gap, but most of that is because our efforts to sign up people for health care have been very successful. If it weren't for that, we pretty much have a balanced budget.
Right.
Moving forward, we're trying to get to universal coverage.
Right.
Is that a problem for you? Do you think this hurts business or it helps business? Do you think this is good for Vermont to have as many people covered, having health coverage?
I think over the long term, it's proven in countries certainly that have universal health care that it's a better social policy. So I think it'll take a long time, or quite some time at any rate, in this country to shake out. But I think it is going to happen. It's just I think it's going to happen slowly, and there are going to be some aches and pains along the way. But I think it's totally the way to go. For both business and state government and individuals, it's not sustainable the way it is right now.
Have you been hearing from businesses, though, positive, negative, about how healthcare costs are affecting them?
I haven't really heard that much recently, so I don't know what that communicates. It may just, I really haven't heard anything very specific, but I look forward to seeing how it rolls out, and businesses are pretty good at passing on information like that, so I imagine I'll hear if it's a big problem.
Yeah. Now, one of the things that we've talked about a lot in the legislature is that government doesn't necessarily create jobs.
Right.
We help businesses.
Right.
We also create the infrastructure.
Right.
We've done a lot in the since Governor Shumlin took office.
Right.
We've done a great job rebuilding our roads, rebuilding our bridges, even apart from the hurricane damage.
Right.
This is a big part of economic development, isn't it?
No question.
Yeah.
No question. And one piece of that, I certainly hope renewable energy will help bring down the cost of energy, because the high cost of energy in the state is a big challenge for businesses, particularly manufacturing and larger businesses that use a lot of energy. So that's frequently cited as one of the problem areas for big business in Vermont.
Yeah.
So.
And IBM was one of those companies.
Absolutely.
Which is now.
Global Foundries.
Global Foundries.
Right, exactly.
Huge users of power.
Absolutely. So bringing down energy costs little by little will have a positive effect on business, I think.
There's another aspect to infrastructure, though, that's essential to business.
Yep.
whether it's home businesses larger.
Sure.
And that's electronic infrastructure.
Right.
Is that something your committee has been working on?
We work on telecommunications and with the PSB and that sort of thing for sure. And we did work closely with the PSB last year to pass legislation that would increase both the up and the downloading capability of broadband and all of that. So, you know, there's always more to do, and we're a small state, so we have to do it as we can. But obviously, that's real priority, and we continue to work, and I'm sure we'll continue to hear this year how we can continue to bring that infrastructure out to every last mile, and at a level that it's suitable for people who are entrepreneurs
and
who want to work at home.
That's changing, isn't it? What's called high-speed internet continues to evolve.
It continues to evolve. So a lot of the wiring now that's being put in, it basically has to be capable of carrying a heavier load, or heavier, whatever it is. I'm not a highly technical person, but so that as speeds improve, the same wires can carry the same. Can carry that higher proficiency of speed delivery.
Yeah. Now I know we've certainly had our challenges in this county.
Yes.
Getting that last mile wired up. And
right.
I've certainly had my challenges in my own town of Putney. Trying to get, and it seems to be happening though slowly. Yes. Are there discussions about how to take it to the next generation though? Once we get just about everybody wired?
You know, I think last year we were more involved with, and last year was the first year I was on the Commerce Committee, and this is relatively new to me, and I'm not a real super techie person, but I think we were dealing kind of with the, you know, just the current problems and not with an eye to the future, but I guess I couldn't really answer that well, so maybe I'll just refrain.
Yeah, sure. 2016 is coming up fast?
Yes, absolutely.
Has your committee been discussing what the agenda is going to be yet?
Yes, actually, we had a number of priorities last year, some of which we didn't get to. The sharing economy or the gig economy or the disruptive economy, whatever you want to call it, the Ubers and the Airbnbs, that's going to be really under our microscope this year and at the top of our agenda. I know I personally am going to sponsor a bill that works to take Airbnb and put it on a level playing field with bed and breakfasts and inns and some of the regulation
big business in Vermont.
Face. Well, it is a big business, and tourism being one of our top 2 income generators. You hate to see our innkeepers and our bed and breakfasts suffer. On the other hand, I don't think we want to quash innovation, so we need to strike the right balance between giving them both the opportunity, you know, both the innovator Airbnb and the current bed and breakfasts and inns to compete, but on a level playing field. So we're going to be working on that this year. I'm going to sponsor that, and Laura Sibelia is going to sponsor it with me on the Airbnb specifically, because we've met with the local chamber and several Airbnb, I'm sorry, several bed and breakfasts, and the bed and breakfasts have said that it's really hurting their business.
Oh, it is already?
Yeah, it is already, and I know, interestingly, the town is going to start to, the Airbnbs they know of, they're basically going to send out a business license form, because then saying to these Airbnbs, you have to comply, you have to at least have a license to operate. Some of the Airbnbs may not even know that, so it's through no fault of their own, possibly they're not registered, but the town is going to start to follow up in that regard. So, so we'll be working on the sharing economy. That'll be really front and center, one of the first things we work on. We're also going to be working on independent contractors in other regards.
Well, that's something that I've been hearing from a number of constituents about in terms of workers' comp.
Right.
And who is an independent
Right.
contractor. So this is something you're going to be picking up?
It's something we're going to be picking up. We heard from a number of, primarily like developers and
Well, I've been hearing from small contractors who've had the experience of they hire an independent, has their own truck, has their own tools, works their own hours as best they can, and then they're told, well, that's no longer an independent contractor. That's a hired employee of yours.
Right, exactly.
It can really hurt the a small company's bottom line.
So we're going to be working on that
You are,
from both, and we heard as well from small independent contractors too. So we've heard from both, and we have to figure out what makes sense. So you want people to be covered and that sort of thing, but you don't. You want to make sure that you regulate in such a way that it's fair to everybody. I guess is the point. So we will be working on that quite a bit. And then every year we basically go over, frequently the Department of Financial Regulation comes to us. We oversee a lot of entities of state government, and so the Department of Financial Regulation, which used to be BISHCA, basically comes to us and they ask us to look at different things. So we tend to do that at the beginning of the session as well, a real look at what's happening regulation-wise for banking and insurance and workers' comp in the state.
There's a bill before House Human Services that I work on that may have to get over to you. And it has to do with predatory behavior on elders. And what's happening is there are people who might have access to their bank accounts. Actually, the people who have been entrusted.
Sad, yeah.
And what we're finding out that some of these bank accounts are getting wiped out. And
terrible.
Law enforcement can't look into it because they need to get permission. Often from the person who's actually cleaning out the bank account. So we're going to have to tweak some laws there so that law enforcement can, and the banking industry wants to work together with us on this.
Interesting.
Yeah, so it's probably going to, I think it started in our committee, but I think it's going to head over to your committee
Interesting.
as well. So,
well, that sounds
it's a shame when our elders are
terrible.
subject to such predatory behavior, but it's up to us really to stand up for them.
Oh, that sounds like a very good for you for delving into that. I think that's incredibly important. Our elders need our help for sure.
Outside of your committee, are there things that you're hoping to pass that? Big picture, little picture?
No, those are, I'm really interested in the marijuana legalization discussion we're going to be having.
Are you hearing from people about that?
I haven't really heard a lot from people about it, but I'm sure once we really, get the bill up there and into debate, we'll hear a lot. But I really want to hear more about what the bill is actually going to contain.
That's right.
I think we need to regulate, so therefore I think we need some sort of regulatory framework. I think also, though, we need to continue to educate about the downsides, particularly for young people under 25, of heavy marijuana usage. So I really hope that one of the details that gets fleshed out in the final legislation is something about putting money toward real education of what the downsides of marijuana usage are amongst young people. Yeah, and I guess the last thing is anything, or not the last thing, but something I really hope we continue to do a good job on is opiate addiction and really thwarting the terrible toll that drugs are taking on our state and our young people. And not just young people, I mean people all across the board. So
it's not just relegated to
Vermont.
People in poverty.
Yeah.
It's across the board.
I know.
It's prescription drugs.
Yes.
It's illegal drugs.
Yes.
It really is a scourge on our population, and I totally agree with you. We need to keep those efforts. The governor's done a great job.
He has.
Putting that front and center, but I agree it needs to be
needs to really continue to be
those
spotlighted.
Efforts,
we
need to keep pushing on that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So those are important issues that we definitely need to.
One of the things I've been asked about,
Yes.
because we're going to be looking at another tight budget year, is tax expenditures.
Right.
Tax breaks.
Yes.
A lot of tax breaks go out there. We have a significant piece of our budget expenditures are tax expenditures, where we take money out of our budget
Right.
for tax breaks.
Right.
Any thoughts on whether we should keep looking at that more closely or just keep it as it is?
Well, I don't know a lot about it, but I certainly feel like the tax breaks that business get in terms of job creation and worker training and that sort of thing, worker education, are really incredibly important, and those should be maintained as long as the program that's been put in place looks like it's working. So I think we would, be cutting off our nose to spite our face if we thought that was the way we could save money. But I think we should continue to look at any possible way that we can bring in more revenue without adversely affecting, the business climate, for sure.
Yep. It's not just businesses that get those tax breaks, though, and
no,
that's where it becomes delicate,
right.
because there's a lot of nonprofits.
Right.
Question is, which ones really need their tax breaks?
And I think that all needs to be analyzed,
Yeah.
for sure. I think everything needs to be looked at. We're in a state where we're a small state. There's not a lot of business, and there's only so many areas we can tax. We generate a lot of our revenue from taxes.
Yeah.
We know that we have to keep the property tax level or push it down, because with declining enrollments of 20% over 20 years, we can't maintain that kind of, and then the costs going up, we can't maintain that. It's not sustainable.
Well, I'm sure it'll be controversial.
Yes.
As soon as you start looking at things like that, but I think everything should be on the table.
Absolutely, I think it has to be, and a lot of times organizations and adapt, and maybe we need a different way of nonprofits working. Maybe more should work together, and maybe we could get bigger bang for our buck by. One thing I want to talk about is I just think is really exciting with regard to that is the Austin School and that property being acquired by the Winston Prouty Center. I think that's a great move forward for our area. And you were talking about optimistic future, and I think that's a really great thing for our area. And also, I recently went to the CCV, Vermont Tech. Basically, they had an open house at the Brooks House, and that's really a very exciting thing for our area as well. Well, getting more feet on the street and young people educated right in Brattleboro. That building is wonderful. So things like that, I think we really need to continue to have these bright spots in our county.
I can't imagine what
town.
Brattleboro would be like if this whole project hadn't come together. And once again, I give a lot of credit to our governor.
Yes.
Because he put a lot of pressure to get those schools to come in here and be the anchors for that
No
building.
question. He had a lot of vision, and he made it happen. And the schools made it happen. The investors made it happen.
That's right.
And then the community really pulled together and pulled it all through. But I think that's a great thing for our area, for sure.
Well, I agree. A couple minutes left.
Yeah.
We're just about out of time. Anything else you want to mention, or?
No, I just would basically like people out there to give me a ring or email me if they have any ideas on how we can do a better job, or a piece of legislation they'd like me to sponsor, or anything that they would like to share with me. I would love to hear. I also hope and plan to continue to really keep abreast of all the great work that SEVIDS and BDCC is doing. I think they've done a wonderful job. They worked really hard to keep GS Precision here. So that was the kind of public-private partnership, rather, that we legislators really love to be involved in and really want to continue to keep abreast of. So I think that's probably the last thing I'd like to say about what we can do right here in Windham County to make this area a better place to live.
Well, thanks for taking the time.
Thank you very much, Mike. Great to be here.
And thanks to you for taking the time to follow in what we're doing here. And Once again, thanks to the people at BCTV for making this possible and bringing our work here and when we're in the State House closer to you at home. Until next time, this is Mike Mrowicki. Take care. Bye-bye.